Hey, thanks for tuning in again today. I want to do another video highlighting another album in my ongoing series called The Crown Jewels. This is going to be episode 12. For those keeping score, I skipped episode 11. That's because the previous video that I released talking about my impressions and my review of the UHQR release for Steely Dan's Gaucho, that's going to be number 11, basically. So rather than do a separate video, a crown jewel video for Gaucho, I'm just going to kind of call that one good and chalk it up as another one in the 50 records that I'm featuring this year as far as crown jewels of my collection. What are crown jewels? You might have just tuned in. You've never seen one of these videos. What the hell am I talking about? The crown jewels are the best sounding records in my collection, you know, in my opinion, with my system and the different pressings that I have. So I kind of go through what pressing I have, why I feel it is worth seeking out, and talking about the sound, maybe talking a little bit about the history. But that is what the Crown Jewels series is. So on to episode 12. I want to feature one of my favorite Elton John records from 1975. Remember, there were two studio albums released in 75. The first one came out in May, and the second record, which was called Rock of the Westies, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, that came out in October of 1975. The record that came out in May is the iconic Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. This is a very early first pressing, gatefold, of course. This was released on DJM Records, and I have a very early UK pressing. Check out the custom label. Now this record, this particular pressing was pressed at a company called Tranco Limited. And Tranco were in the UK, and they were known for having a higher quality vinyl formula for the records that they pressed. And if you hold these records to the light, most often you'll see that they're translucent and they have a deep red color. There are several Elton John albums from the 70s that were pressed on Tranco vinyl. I wanted this pressing because all the reviews that you read about on the forums, Steve Hoffman and others, most people are saying that the best sounding pressings that you can find of this album and all of those incredible 1970s Elton John albums are the early UK pressings, typically on Tranco vinyl. Now, Elton John has put out a well-regarded reissue of all of his albums, I think starting in 2017 or 18. Those are highly regarded, and I don't have one. I haven't purchased one to make a comparison to this, but I will say I have had US pressings of this record, and let me preface that by saying it was a well-engineered, produced, recorded record. The US copies that I had, the problem I had with those, they were MCA records, and I've had two or three. One looked near mint. Ran it through a Humming Guru several times, and I still had a lot of annoying surface noise. And trust me, you don't want surface noise on this record, especially when we're talking about the kind of quiet lead up on the title track, which is the first song on side one. And then, importantly, you want a really clean pressing to really enjoy the charm and the power that is Someone Saved My Life Tonight. That, of course, was the lone single on this record. It was released. Someone Saved My Life Tonight is the final song on side one, and it is in the top 3 of my favorite Elton John songs ever. Elton John, Bernie Taupin songs, let me make that correction. It is just, first of all, Elton John, his voice at that point in time in 1975, before substance abuse kind of really kicked in, it was just a sublime instrument. It was an incredible voice that Elton had, and you can hear that on so many songs, but it is really showcased on Someone Saved My Life Tonight. Let me switch gears and talk about, I'll talk about the recording of the record. It was recorded during the month of August 1974 at Caribou Ranch here in Colorado, a very historical recording studio, kind of one of those residential live-in facilities where people would come to unwind, probably do some drugs, drink a lot of booze, and do some recording at the same time. Caribou Ranch was based in Nederland, Colorado. That is a small mountain town in the foothills, kind of above Boulder, Colorado, not too far from where I am here today. And it eventually did close. It is still owned by the same family. They're now doing grass-fed beef on that property. No longer recording, but look up Caribou Ranch. You've probably heard of it. There is a laundry list of artists who have recorded there in the 70s into the 1980s. And Elton John, this was not the only record that he recorded there. Rock of the Westies as well. And anyway, so it's a very well recorded record. Now, this particular early pressing came with some little extras that I'll show you now. First of all, we got a really nice reproduction of the artwork. A big trifold poster, and I mean quite large. I think the U.S. posters, those that have survived, I don't think it was the same size format as the UK. The UK posters are larger. Of course, we got a very nice lyric sheet signed on the back by Bernie and Elton. And then we got a very cool add-on called Scraps with a very nice comic on the back. And just as it kind of sounds like it's a scrapbook. And there are tons of photos of Elton and Bernie Taupin's history back in the suburbs of London, 1967 to 1969. That's what this record is really about. It's about those early years when those guys had teamed up. Bernie Taupin, of course, was writing the songs, the lyrics, and Elton John was composing the music against them and combining them to come up with what would eventually become one of the best and prolific songwriting partners in history. But this record is kind of a song cycle, very autobiographical, talking about the struggles, the trials, the tribulations of trying to gain traction and break through, which eventually they did in 1970. Captain Fantastic, Elton John, the Brown Dirt Cowboy, Bernie Taupin. The soundstage is incredible on this record. There is really nice separation of instruments for the most part, but in a few of these songs, there is a lot of instrumentation happening, a lot of playing going on, and it can sound a little congested at times, but you will also be able to pick out different things happening, and it's a very nice sounding vintage recording from 1975. One of the best sounding things of this record are the drums. The drums were just recorded incredibly well. Of course, Nigel Olsson was the drummer, along with the classic lineup there. Dee Murray on bass guitar, Davy Johnstone on guitar, Ray Cooper, playing various percussion instruments, and he's kind of the interesting, dramatic guy. He had the big eyeglasses, and you see him at all of these kind of famous concerts, especially with Elton, and he's been with other people as well. He was in the George Harrison tribute concert for George, on several tracks as well. But I've always admired Ray Cooper, and kind of what a, he's kind of an interesting personality. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 1975, an early DJM Records pressing from the UK. Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy, definitely one of the best sounding records in my collection. Slowly but surely, I have been working on acquiring and finding all of the 1970s classic Elton albums on UK pressings. I think they sound great. Thanks everybody, and I'll be back soon with something new. Have a great evening.